It's one of the many reasons people come to Newfoundland and Labrador, the sheer beauty of this place. The vastness of the ocean, the sound and smell of it, the color and character of the people who live near it. It's all part of what attracted Dick and Ruth Ellsworth to Newfoundland. It's why they bought this 100-year-old home in Mabberley, near Bonavista.
There's a breeze coming up. Thank goodness.
The Ellsworths are Americans. They live in Vermont. But every summer for the past 6 years, as soon as their son has finished with school, they've come back to this place, their Newfoundland retreat.
Get up, Max. Get up.
The simplicity of life here, the people who look at them as friends, not outsiders, these are all things that bring Dick and Ruth back. But they have nothing to do with what brought them here in the first place. A mountaintop near Burgoyne's Cove, not an hour's drive from Mabberley, is littered with the wreckage of a staggering plane crash. She was a Peacemaker, a big American B36 bomber, one of the planes that helped keep the peace during the Cold War. It was 1953. The Peacemaker was working her way home to South Dakota. But during a March snowstorm, she went astray. Flying blind and low in the bad weather, the plane crashed into the side of this mountain. The crew literally didn't see it coming. "23 men died that day. One of them was an American Air Force Brigadier General, Dick Ellsworth's father.
I was out delivering papers. I had a paper route. And I came back home from delivering my papers, and I took one look at my mother and said, I knew something was very wrong. I said, "What's wrong?" And she told me that there had been an accident. My initial reaction when Mother said that there had been an accident, I went into the washroom and threw up. I mean, I remember that clearly. After that, it was fine. It was sort of a numb period in your life.
The bodies were brought back to the Air Force Base in South Dakota, where the Peacemaker and Ellsworth were stationed. Dick, the oldest of 3 boys, was just 13 when his father was killed. He remembers a funeral of statesman standards.
All the Air Force generals were there, and the President of the United States was there, and I remember meeting him and talking with him and that kind of thing. Because of all the pomp and ceremony and everything that went with it, with the renaming of the base and all that, it was a couple of day affair leading up to the funeral service itself.
President Eisenhower renamed the South Dakota Air Base the Ellsworth Air Force Base in honor of Dick's father, Brigadier General Richard Ellsworth, the young man who'd risen through the ranks during World War II with the respect of all those around him, dead at 43.
His legacy to me was this, pride I had in what he had done and who he was, and that kept me going.
He was barely more than a child, and he'd lost a father who seemed infallible, and he watched his mother grieve. Still, as a boy and as a young adult, Dick Ellsworth managed to hold it all together.
I think as a child, I grew to put that in one part of my psyche. It just got closed off and put over here because there wasn't anything I could do about it. And as far as I was concerned at that point, Newfoundland was the other side of the world.
It would take years, but Newfoundland would come to feel a lot closer than Dick Ellsworth ever thought it would. We'll have more right after the break. After his father's death, Dick Ellsworth went on to join the Air Force himself. He spent 6 years in the service and flew a fueling tanker during the Vietnam War. Afterwards, Dick joined a commercial airline company in the States, TWA. He flew with them for more than 30 years, often over that far-off place called Newfoundland.
I always look down, try to, distinguish some landmarks that I was really kind of unaware of until I actually came here. I didn't know very much about the place. I did land in St. John's one time for fuel. That was the only time I got here prior to my coming up.
He told me about it. He told me about flying over Newfoundland all of those years and looking down on the island and seeing it as this big rock sticking up out of the ocean and saying that, yes, someday he would like to go there. But we really did not entertain a trip here until we were invited.
That invitation didn't come till more than 40 years after the disaster. The search and rescue unit in Gander, the first on site the night of the crash, was planning to erect a monument on the mountain in memory of the 23 men who perished here. The daughter of one of the original rescue team wrote Dick and invited him to come. As fate would have it, the letter was lost in the mail. It didn't reach Dick until a full year later. The monument was up by then, but they decided to come anyway. It was 1996, and for the first time, Dick Ellsworth made that trip up the mountain. Ruth and their youngest son, Tobin, were with him.
First of all, the trail was poorly marked, and it took us a while to find it. And the walking up the hill was sort of a thought-consuming process. But once you crested the hill, it was just amazing. It was just, there aren't words to describe it, because it's really beautiful spot, and here's all this wreckage that had been there for so long. It was just I don't have the words to describe it. Just amazing.
He was very, very quiet, and we left him alone, and he wandered all over the site and took a very long time to take it all in. And then when we were finished, and he still wasn't talking, and I said, "So what's your reaction? What thinking?" And he said, "It's a very good thing that it's been so many years."
Dick's made many trips up the mountain since. Today, it's just him and Tobin, exploring what's now familiar territory.
So anyway, I'm speculating that the airplane came from right there and started shedding parts just below the crest of the hill, continued shedding parts until it ended up here and exploded. Because you can see how the parts are scattered from just below the edge of that hill all the way down here until the aircraft ended up in the gully here to our left. If it had been a clear day, they could have seen it. But it was snowing and overcast. I think the ceiling was about 800 feet.
Dick's convinced that if the Peacemaker had been flying just 500 feet to the left, or even only 100 feet higher, barely more than half the length of herself, this horrendous thing would not have happened. It was that close.
It's kind of scary if you stop and think about it from that point of view. But I'm sure that the people on this airplane didn't know what hit them. I mean, it happened so fast that I'm sure that nobody had a chance to be frightened. It's we who are left who are frightened.
It's really special. I love coming up here with my dad, but it's really sad because I see how he gets kind of quiet and everything, and I don't know. I just let him do his thing. I mean, I'll ask all my questions and everything, but I don't know. It's kind of strange.
I still am quiet. It happens every time. It's pretty amazing. You asked me yesterday also how I felt about it, and I've been thinking about it, and being here today caused me to think again that I try not to think about it because it must have been just so horrible. That huge airplane disintegrating in nothing in just seconds, and the people in it all dead instantly. It's just horrifying. And so I try not to think about it, I guess.
In a photography studio in St. John's, there's another man who's taken a keen interest in the Peacemaker. Bill Harris is a Newfoundlander. He lost no relatives in the crash. He doesn't even know Dick Ellsworth. But for more than a year now, Bill's been a guardian of the site. He's always been an aviation buff and has a fascination with this province's military history. You can see that in his work. So when he and a buddy stumbled upon the Peacemaker site a few years back, he was awestruck.
When I got up there and I seen the crash site and the mountain all over the place, and then the backdrop of the beauty of Newfoundland, I mean, you can see right up to Random Island there, and all up to Ireland's Eye, right across Trinity Bay. It was just beautiful, breathtaking. Yet down below you there was a scene of destruction and death. Just incredible.
Bill went back many times. He photographed everything, including the monument search and rescue place there in '93, a slate-covered base bearing a plaque and a propeller from the Peacemaker reaching toward the sky. The plaque had become weather-beaten and damaged, and Bill felt that was wrong. So he contacted the Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota. If they would send a new plaque, Bill would get it up the mountain.
When you go out and visit that site, yeah, I was sitting there on the side of the hill one day by myself, just looking at the site, and there was a cross right up in the top stabilizer. Somebody put a wooden cross there, and all of a sudden I heard this metal blow, and it's like there's somebody still alive there. So the ghost of this airman who had died at that site. It was beautiful, yet unreal at the same time.
Bill has never met Dick Ellsworth, but he knows his story. Dick is invited to come along when they bring the new plaque to the site, a chance to make up for missing that first monument raising more than 10 years ago.
I'd like to get my photograph with him so I can have it for future generations. I'm proud to meet him. Well, he's close to his father as he ever get. Shake his hand, that's what I want to do.
Bill Harris gets his opportunity on a miserable Sunday in July at the base of the mountain both men have climbed so often.
I hear a lot about you.
Dick Ellsworth.
Bill Harris, glad to meet you, Dick.
Nice to meet you.
Long time.
Yeah.
Heard a lot about you over the last couple of years. And your dad?
Hope it was all good.
Oh, perfect. Nothing wrong with it at all, man.
Good.
Good to meet you.
Well, it's nice to meet you.
We're going to take another hike up that hill again.
Well, yeah. I hope it lets up a little bit here. We won't be soaked going up.
They're not the only ones willing to brave the rain. Newfoundland artist Dave Hodnott is also here today. Bill's invited him along too, with the plan of later commissioning a painting of the Peacemaker.
You're going to do a little work today, are you?
Well, I hope so.
Kind of draw on wet paper.
Yeah,
isn't
it is difficult to draw, but we'll work through it somehow. Not that I'm unused to this.
Yeah, I suppose not.
Yeah. No, it's going to be exciting to get up and see the site and just have.
Oh, you haven't been up?
I haven't been up. No,
Oh,
just looked
okay.
at some pictures that
Yep.
Bill had taken,
Yep.
but very
Okay.
excited about it. Very excited.
Good.
Yeah.
Let me get my friends out and we'll start.
Dick, have a look at this
Hi.
thing.
Oh, yeah.
There she is, buddy.
Yes, that's very nice. You did a good job.
Geez, I think you could have made it a bit lighter.
Yeah. Well, it'll last a little longer then, eh?
Oh, the other one. You seen the other one that was up there?
I did, yeah.
That was in rough shape a couple of years ago when we hauled it out of there.
Despite the weather, which is only getting worse, a small entourage of people work their way to the crash site, with Bill and Dick in the lead.
Hey, go, sir. After you.
Thank you. Got this nice little turnstile here.
You spent some time in the service yourself?
Yeah, I spent 6 years in the Air Force, and I flew for TWA for 32 years. Go ahead.
I'm after being up here half a dozen times now.
Yeah.
And every time you go up here, you see something different.
Yeah, it is.
Find some piece of wreckage you never see before.
Yeah, I know it. Well, I started coming up and saw that people were carrying stuff off the hill,
Yeah.
which sort of aggravated me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Getting the new plaque up here is no small feat. It's solid brass and weighs over 50 pounds. That's a heavy load even on a nice day. And getting it here from the air base in South Dakota wasn't easy either.
No, let me start her first.
Bill Harris was over a year making the arrangements. He was on the phone to military historians for months. And when they wanted to see what needed replacing, Bill lugged a generator up the mountain, drilled the old plaque away from the base of the monument, and sent it down. It's time and energy most people would never have invested, especially if they had no emotional connection to this place. But for Bill, it seemed the only decent thing to do.
Mission accomplished. Where's Kev at? Give us a shot. What's up, Dick? Come on, we get a picture together, buddy.
In the pouring rain, a moment is shared. It's the photo Bill Harris was hoping for. And this is the painting Dave Hodnott was hoping for. The Peacemaker washed in moonlight, flying in full glory. Something rang true to Dave the day he saw the wreckage, especially with the weather so poor, so similar to what it was like the night the Peacemaker met her fate, making military history on a mountaintop in Newfoundland.
What I wanted to do was try to celebrate the airplane itself, you know, put it in the context of the moonlight with the exciting colors and so on around it, rather than the night that it crashed, as we had talked about that actually. It was a terrible all night. There was a lot of wind and rain and snow and so on, so very difficult to try to represent a painting of that. So I thought this would be a fun way to do it, and I think make the plane look very dramatic.
This is Frank's store.
When Dick and Ruth Ellsworth first came to Newfoundland, it was all about his dad's death. Now it's about so much more.
That's Rex's store.
I get up in the morning and I make a pot of coffee and I read a book and just watch the whales and enjoy the early morning, and we may go for a walk or a hike, or we'd go fishing when we could, or we just go walk on the beach or just enjoy ourselves for a couple of months. And it's just such a completely different atmosphere that it's really a vacation.
Ironically, this place that for so many years meant pain and loss has now given something back.
I mean, like I said before, when we were up on the mountain, the friend of mine said, "Oh man, what a beautiful place to die." Well, it is a beautiful place. Whether you live here or whether you died here, it's a beautiful place. It's a good place to come.
There's comfort here now and quiet contentment, and Ruth often wonders about that, about how much of it is purely accidental.
I think there's some karmic connection. I think that sometimes you are where you're meant to be. And when we came here, we felt as though we were meant to be here. And Dick's father having been lost here, I know that if his mother were alive, that she would want to be here, not all the time, but she would feel a connection. I see the irony that you're alluding to in that he was taken away here, but maybe he's here.